The Wolf and the Seven Little Goats. Once upon a time, in a quiet cottage by the forest, there lived a kind mother goat and her 7 little kids. Their days were filled with warmth, laughter, and love. One morning, Mother Goat had to go into the forest to find food. She gathered her children close and spoke softly.
My dear little ones, I must be away for a while. Be careful of the wolf, for he is cunning. He may try to trick you by pretending to be me. Remember, his voice is rough, and his paws are dark and ugly. Never open the door for him.
The kids nodded eagerly and replied,
Don't worry, dear mother. We will be careful.
She kissed each one on the head, then stepped outside, leaving the cottage filled with cheerful voices. Not far away, the wolf had been watching. Soon he knocked at the door and tried to sound gentle.
Open the door, children. Mother is home, and I've brought you treats.
But the kids listened carefully. His voice was deep and rough.
Our mother has a soft, sweet voice. You are the wolf.
The wolf growled with anger and went away to try another trick. He hurried to a shop, bought a piece of chalk, and ate it to soften his voice. Then he returned and knocked again, this time sounding sweeter.
Open up, dear children. Mother has come home.
But when he placed his paw on the window, the kids saw it black and ugly.
Our mother does not have a black paw. You are the wolf.
The wolf would not give up. He went to the baker, who spread dough on his paw, and then to the miller, who sprinkled flour to make it white. Now, with a soft voice and a white paw, he returned once more and knocked at the door. This time, when the kids peeked outside, they saw a white paw. They believed it was their mother and opened the door. At once, the wolf rushed in. The little kids ran in all directions to hide. One beneath the table, one in the bed, one behind the stove, one inside the cupboard, one in the wash basin, one under the clock, and the youngest, so very small, hid inside the tall grandfather clock. The wolf found and swallowed them, one by one, all except the youngest, safe inside the clock. Full and heavy, the wolf wandered into the meadow, stretched out beneath a tree, and fell into a deep, rumbling sleep. His belly rose and fell with every breath. Before long, Mother Goat returned. The door stood wide open, chairs were overturned, and silence filled the house. Her heart trembled as she called each of her children's names, but none answered. At last, a tiny voice whispered from the clock,
Mother, I am here. The wolf. He swallowed all the others.
Mother Goat wept, then quickly took her youngest by the hand and hurried to the meadow. There she saw the wolf, fast asleep, his belly round and swollen. A spark of hope lit her heart. She ran back for scissors, needle, and thread. With careful hands, she cut open the wolf's side. And oh, what joy! Out popped one little head, then another, and another until all 6 kids jumped out, safe and sound. The greedy wolf had swallowed them whole. What a reunion it was, as they hugged their dear mother with tears of happiness. Then Mother Goat said,
Now, children, we must teach the wolf a lesson.
They gathered heavy stones and filled the wolf's belly, then stitched it up again. After a while, the wolf woke, thirsty and weak. He stumbled to the well for a drink, but the weight of the stones dragged him down, and he disappeared forever. The 7 little kids danced with joy around the well, safe at last. From that day on, laughter filled their little cottage, and every evening, as the stars rose, Mother Goat's gentle voice would sing her children to sleep. And now, dear listener, may you too rest safe and sound and drift softly into dreams. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, there lived a sweet young girl. She always wore a bright red cloak with a hood, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, her mother packed a basket with bread and jam.
Take this to your grandmother, dear. She is not feeling well. But remember, stay on the path and never talk to strangers.
Yes, Mother, I promise.
And so, Little Red Riding Hood set off into the forest. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the girl skipped happily along the path. But someone was watching her from the shadows, a sly, hungry wolf.
Good morning, little girl. Where are you going on such a fine day?
I'm going to my grandmother's house at the edge of the forest.
The wolf licked his lips. He had already thought of a wicked plan.
Your grandmother would love some flowers. Why not pick a few for her?
The girl thought this was a lovely idea and stepped off the path to gather blossoms. Meanwhile, the wolf hurried down a secret shortcut, reaching grandmother's house first. He knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Who is it?
It is I, Little Red Riding Hood.
The moment grandmother opened the door, the wolf leapt inside and swallowed her whole. Then he put on her nightcap, climbed into bed, and waited. Soon after, Little Red Riding Hood arrived. She stepped inside and looked at her. Grandmother. Something felt strange.
Grandmother, what big eyes you have.
All the better to see you with, my dear.
Grandmother, what big ears you have.
All the better to hear you with, my dear.
Grandmother, what big teeth you have.
All the better to eat you with.
The wolf sprang from the bed. Little Red Riding Hood screamed in terror, but just then a woodcutter passing by heard the cry. He burst into the house.
Stay back, beast.
With one mighty swing of his axe, he frightened the wolf away. The creature ran deep into the forest, never to be seen again. Fortunately, grandmother was safe. She had hidden in the cupboard before the wolf could catch her.
Oh, my dear child, I am so glad you are safe.
Grandmother hugged her granddaughter tightly.
Remember, child, never leave the path and never speak to strangers.
Yes, Grandmother, I will never forget.
From that day on, Little Red Riding Hood was wiser and more careful, forever safe in the love of her family. And so ends the tale of Little Red Riding Hood. Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, at the edge of a deep forest, there lived a poor woodcutter, his wife, and his 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. Times were hard, and their cupboards were often bare. Yet, in their little cottage, there was still warmth, for Hansel and Gretel loved each other dearly, and their father cared for them with all his heart. One evening, when the moon shone pale through the window, the children overheard their stepmother whispering harshly.
There is not enough food for us all. Tomorrow we must take the children deep into the forest.
Gretel trembled, but Hansel squeezed her hand.
Don't be afraid.
He whispered gently.
I will find a way.
That night, while everyone else slept, Hansel slipped outside. The moonlight glistened on white pebbles along the path. He filled his pockets and returned to bed with a calm smile. The next morning, the stepmother led the children deep into the woods, but as they walked, Hansel dropped the pebbles one by one. When night fell and their parents did not return, Hansel said,
Do not worry, little sister. Look, there is our path.
And under the bright moon, the white pebbles shone like silver. The children followed them safely back home. The stepmother was furious, and soon after, the same plan was made again. This time, Hansel wanted to gather more pebbles, but the door was locked. He thought quickly, and as they walked, dropped tiny pieces of bread instead. Deeper and deeper into the forest they went, until they were left alone once more. But when the moon rose, Hansel looked for the path. Alas, the bread had been eaten by the birds of the forest. Gretel wept, but Hansel put his arm around her shoulders.
We are together,
He said softly.
and as long as we are, we will find a way.
They wandered until they were weary, and at last they saw something wonderful. A little house, shining in the sunlight. Its roof was made of gingerbread, its windows of sugar, its walls of cake. Hungry and amazed, the children broke off a piece to eat. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and an old woman appeared. She smiled kindly and said,
Come inside, little ones. You must be hungry and tired.
Hansel and Gretel stepped in, and the house seemed warm and safe. But what they did not know was that the old woman was really a wicked witch who built her sweet house to lure children in. The next morning, the witch locked Hansel in a cage and told Gretel she must work. Yet Gretel was clever and brave, though she pretended to obey. The witch ordered Hansel to stretch out his finger so she could see if he was fat enough to eat. But Hansel held out a little bone instead, and the witch, nearly blind, thought he was still too thin. Day after day, Gretel cared for her brother, until at last the witch grew impatient.
Tomorrow I will eat him, whether he is fat or thin.
That night, Gretel held Hansel's hand through the bars and whispered,
Do not lose hope. I will save us.
The next morning, the witch built up the fire in the oven. She told Gretel,
Crawl in and see if it is hot enough.
but Gretel, with a calm voice, replied,
I do not know how. Please show me.
impatient. The witch leaned in to demonstrate, and quick as a flash, Gretel gave a great push and closed the door. The witch was gone forever. Gretel ran to her brother, freed him from the cage, and together they laughed with relief. In the corners of the witch's house, they found boxes filled with pearls and jewels.
These will help Father.
Hansel said, and with light hearts they set out through the forest once again. The path home was long, but the birds sang to guide them, and the trees seemed to open the way. At last they reached their father's cottage. He rushed to embrace them, tears of joy in his eyes. The cruel stepmother was gone, and from that day forward the little family lived in peace, with enough food and enough love to last forever. And so, dear one, the story of Hansel and Gretel reminds us, even in dark forests, hope and courage will lead the way home. Now, close your eyes, feel safe and warm, and drift gently into sweet dreams. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a queen sat by her window, sewing. She pricked her finger, and 3 drops of blood fell upon the snow. As she looked at the red upon the white, she whispered,
I wish for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony.
Not long after, the queen gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, just as she had wished. They named her Snow White. But soon the good queen passed away, and the king took another wife. This new queen was proud and cruel. She had a magic mirror, and every day she would ask,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
The mirror always answered,
You, my queen, are the fairest of them all.
Years passed, and Snow White grew lovelier each day. One morning, when the queen asked her question, the mirror replied,
You, my queen, are fair indeed, but Snow White is fairer than you.
Jealousy burned in the queen's heart. She ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and leave her there. But the kind huntsman could not harm the innocent girl. With tears in his eyes, he told her,
Run, Snow White, and never return.
Alone and frightened, Snow White wandered through the trees until she found a small cottage. Inside, everything was tiny, tiny chairs, tiny plates, tiny beds. Exhausted, she lay down across the little beds and fell fast asleep. When night came, the owners returned. They were 7 dwarfs who worked in the mines. They found the girl asleep and were filled with wonder. When Snow White awoke, she told them her story. The dwarfs said kindly,
Stay with us, keep our home, and you shall be safe here.
Snow White agreed, and soon the little cottage was filled with warmth and laughter. But the queen discovered the truth. Her mirror still told her,
Snow White lives, and she is fairer than you.
Enraged, the queen disguised herself and went into the forest. First, she laced Snow White's dress so tightly that the girl could not breathe. But when the dwarfs returned, they loosened it, and Snow White revived. Next, the queen gave her a poisoned comb. The moment it touched her hair, she fell faint. Again, the dwarfs removed it, and she awoke. At last, the queen prepared a poisoned apple, red and shiny. She disguised herself once more and offered it to Snow White.
Here, my dear, taste this sweet apple.
Snow White, trusting the old woman, took a bite. She ate the poisoned side and fell to the ground, still and cold. This time, the dwarfs could not wake her. Weeping, they placed her in a glass coffin so they could always watch over her gentle face. Days turned into months, and still she lay as if asleep. One day, a young prince came riding through the forest. He saw Snow White in the coffin and felt his heart fill with love. He begged the dwarfs,
Please, let me take her to my castle. I will honor her forever.
The dwarfs, moved by his devotion, agreed. As the prince's servants carried the coffin, they stumbled, and a piece of the poisoned apple slipped from Snow White's lips. She stirred, then slowly opened her eyes. The prince whispered with joy,
You are safe now.
Snow White smiled, and soon, with the blessings of the dwarfs, she and the prince were wed. The cruel queen, when she asked her mirror, heard at last that she was no longer the fairest. But Snow White did not fear her any more, for she was surrounded by love and kindness. And so Snow White lived happily ever after, with her 7 friends always close to her heart. Now, dear one, as the stars twinkle above, let your eyes grow heavy and dream sweet dreams, knowing that love and kindness will always protect you